So how does all those lessons of teamwork and showing up and being a pro, how did that transfer over when you started in broadcasting? You
Well,
you
it's
working career.
interesting, but there's plenty of life lessons there that I try to carry to Sportsnet. Now, the funny thing about my two careers was one was I never got to be a frontline player, right? I knew my role, I knew my capabilities, and I couldn't do the same things that Mark Messier could do, or Brian Leach, or any of the other superstars. So I had my limitations, and I just needed to focus on being the best player I could within my capabilities. Now I go to a brand new career in broadcasting, and while it started off incredibly rough, where I got fired my first year, which is well documented in the book,
Yeah.
and how I was able to save my career. And a few people helped me along the way, and it's a quite interesting and funny story on how my my first year didn't end up being my last year, and then it grew at a pretty fast rate, where I went from being a role broadcaster in my first few years to being a frontline player, to being a leader, and in many ways, Sportsnet made me the face of the network. And I also documented my climb to what it meant to me financially, which is a pretty incredible story as well, and how I was able to parlay my success into being one of the highest paid broadcasters in the country. So I went from being a role player in my career to being a frontline player in Sportsnet. And I just had to make sure that I was paying attention long enough, where I watched a guy like Mark Messier conduct himself, because he was our star, he was our leader, and he had this uncanny ability to bring people together. And now, I'm not saying I was the Mark Messier of broadcasting to Sportsnet, but I was a guy that people looked up to, that needed to lead, and to be in a position to help us grow as a network. And I wanted to be a Mark Messier to Sportsnet, like he was to us in 1994. So
Mhm.
I try to pay attention and make sure that all those lessons of bringing people together, I was now in a position to do for Sportsnet. And it was a great climb. As you mentioned earlier, our goal was to be a top network, to be a network that we could be proud of. And after 21 years, I like to think my fingerprints are all over that place when they carry the mantle as being the national broadcaster to the National Hockey League.